Okay, so let's dive into some pretty heavy stuff today.
Yeah.
School lockdowns. We're going to be
Yeah.
talking about school lockdowns and that chilling thought that for so many students and staff, it's not a matter of if but when.
Right.
And we're going to be exploring excerpts from the Blackfield podcast, school lockdown stories, and these firsthand accounts.
Yeah.
They really bring home the raw human experience
Yeah.
of these events.
What's fascinating about these stories is that they're not about, statistics or news reports. They're about the visceral emotions, the fear, the uncertainty, and the resilience of those who've lived through these terrifying situations.
Exactly. The first story takes us right into a calculus class.
Okay.
A scene I'm sure a lot of us can relate to. A relaxed atmosphere, maybe even a little boring,
Right.
until it's shattered by the lockdown announcement, the dean's voice crackling over the PA system. Suddenly turns, panicked, the lights go out, plunging the room into darkness, and then you hear the sounds of the intruder. It's like your senses are heightened, every creak and groan amplifying the fear.
And the teacher's reaction in this one is striking.
Yeah.
He goes from this laid-back guy leading the class in a Sparkle game, that's a trivia website for those unfamiliar, to someone completely transformed.
Right.
He's suddenly thrust into the role of protector.
Yeah.
His focus shifting from equations to the safety of his students.
Yeah, it really makes you think about the hidden reserves of strength we all have, the way we can rise to the occasion when faced with danger.
It does.
And then there's that chilling quote from the intruder.
Yeah.
I'll kill all of you. Even hearing it secondhand, it sends shivers down your spine.
It does.
The stark reminder of the real threat these situations pose.
And what's even more unsettling is that in this story, the intruder is never found.
Oh, wow.
They discover a loaded .44 Magnum later,
Oh, my God.
but no sign of him. It leaves you with this lingering sense of unease, the knowledge that someone capable of such violence was able to enter the school and disappear without a trace.
That's a chilling thought, and it really raises questions about the effectiveness of security measures
Yeah.
and the potential for
Yeah.
future threats. This incident becomes like a ghost that haunts the school community,
Right.
a constant reminder of their vulnerability.
Absolutely. It underscores the need for a thorough investigation and follow-up in such cases, not just to apprehend the perpetrator, but also to reassure the community
Right.
and implement measures to prevent similar incidents from happening again.
The second story we're diving into takes place during a seemingly ordinary lunch break with a storm brewing outside.
Okay.
It's like the calm before the storm, literally, but also metaphorically. You have students chatting, eating, going about their usual routines, and then suddenly chaos erupts.
Yeah, the contrast between the ordinary and the sudden eruption of fear is really effective in highlighting just how quickly things can change. We hear about Eric, a student who goes to check with a staff member about something and comes back. Pale-faced whispers spread through the cafeteria about a barricaded man, a registered sex offender, who has been seen watching children outside the school.
That detail, he was watching kids outside the school just staring,
Yeah.
is so unsettling. It taps into our primal fears about predators and the vulnerability of children.
And then we learn about a Halloween message written in blood.
Oh, gosh.
A missed warning sign that adds another layer of chilling foreshadowing to the story.
Right?
You can almost feel the tension in the air, the sense of dread building as the lockdown stretches into an hour.
It makes you wonder, how many times are there these warning signs that we miss or dismiss?
Right.
And how can we be more vigilant without succumbing to paranoia?
Right.
It's a difficult balance to strike.
While the previous story emphasized the fear of the unknown, this next one focuses on a direct encounter with the threat,
Okay.
which brings a different kind of terror. This time, the narrator is working as a computer intern in the familiar setting of their old high school.
Okay.
Years have passed, but the building itself still holds those memories, those associations of safety and routine.
And then the lockdown announcement just shatters that sense of security.
Yeah.
The narrator finds themselves alone in their basement office, a space that now feels more like a prison than a sanctuary.
The story does a great job of building suspense slowly. We hear about a creaking door, slow, deliberate footsteps outside, and the heart-pounding silence that follows. It's like a thriller unfolding in real time.
And then a text message from Dave arrives, providing a lifeline of information.
Right.
But also confirming the worst fears.
Yeah.
Mr. Buckley, a teacher, has been shot.
The text message also gives a description of the gunman, which really ramps up the tension because now the narrator has a face to put to the threat.
Right.
And then there he is, the man in the red shirt and hat standing right outside the office door.
It's like a nightmare come to life.
Yeah.
You can almost feel the narrator's heart pounding in their chest as the man casually asks about an exit. It's that chilling contrast between his ordinary words and the reality of the situation.
That line, "Just a dad came to pick up my kid," is so disturbing because it highlights how easily violence can be masked by normalcy.
It's true.
It makes you question everyone, and everything erodes that basic sense of trust we have in our interactions with others.
And then the narrator makes a split-second decision, run the gunshot, rings out the sound echoing in the empty hallway as they escape. It's a scene straight out of an action movie.
Wow.
But with very real consequences, Mr. Buckley thankfully survives, but the shooter's motive remains a mystery.
Right.
We're left with unanswered questions and the haunting realization that sometimes there is no rhyme or reason to these acts of violence.
It's also a powerful reminder that even when you escape physical harm, the psychological impact of such an encounter can be profound.
Yeah.
The trauma stays with you, shaping how you view the world, how you interact with others, how you navigate your own sense of safety.
Absolutely, and it brings up the importance of providing mental health support for survivors of these events.
Yeah.
We need to recognize that trauma manifests in different ways and that healing takes time,
Sure.
support, and often professional help.
The next story takes us to a college campus, and it's a stark reminder that these threats aren't confined to high schools.
Right.
Our narrator is in a computer lab working on a project when the lockdown alarm sounds.
Okay.
Initially, there's a sense of disbelief, a reluctance to accept that something so terrible could be happening in their familiar, seemingly safe environment.
It's like that initial denial phase that buffer our minds create to protect us from the overwhelming reality of a crisis.
Yeah.
We see it play out as people dismiss the alarm as a drill or maybe a prank.
Sure.
It takes a while for the weight of the situation to sink in.
And then the professor receives a text message confirming that there's an active shooter on campus.
Oh, wow.
The atmosphere in the lab shifts dramatically. People start to panic, crying, calling loved ones, frantically searching for information online. The story captures that raw, primal instinct for survival that kicks in when we're confronted with a life-or-death situation.
The narrator describes people hiding under desks, barricading the door with tables and chairs, desperately trying to find any sense of security in a space that suddenly feels incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's a chaotic scene filled with fear and uncertainty.
Amidst all this chaos, the narrator notices a student who seems strangely calm.
Really?
He's sitting at a computer, seemingly unfazed by the lockdown, continuing to play a game as if nothing is happening.
It's such a jarring detail, this juxtaposition of the life or death situation and the student's complete absorption in his game.
Right.
It makes you wonder, is it a coping mechanism, a way to block out the terror?
Yeah.
Or is it something else entirely, a detachment that's difficult to comprehend?
It's a question that lingers with you. Is it denial, a form of shock, or perhaps a strange kind of resilience?
Yeah.
The story doesn't offer a definitive answer, and that ambiguity adds to its impact. We're left to ponder the different ways people respond to trauma, the complexities of the human psyche under duress.
The lockdown eventually ends, but the narrator is left deeply shaken, haunted, not only by the experience itself, but also by the student's chilling indifference.
Right.
It underscores the point that even when you survive a lockdown physically unharmed, the psychological scars can run deep and take various forms.
And this leads us to the crucial point about providing mental health support for survivors.
Yes.
We need to be aware that trauma doesn't always present itself in obvious ways. It can manifest as anxiety, depression, sleep disturbances, flashbacks, or a myriad of other symptoms.
Right.
Recognizing and addressing these needs is crucial to helping individuals heal and rebuild their lives.
The next story shifts gears a bit, focusing on the aftermath of a school shooting and the long-term effects of trauma.
Okay.
It's told from the perspective of a therapist who works with survivors of the Columbine High School massacre, a tragedy that continues to resonate deeply within our collective consciousness.
This story highlights the importance of recognizing that healing from such a traumatic event is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
The therapist describes working with survivors who are still struggling years later, grappling with PTSD, anxiety, depression, and the complex emotional and psychological scars that these events leave behind.
It really underscores the need for ongoing support and understanding.
Yeah.
These survivors carry the weight of their experiences with them, and their healing process is often long and arduous.
The therapist also talks about the ripple effects of trauma, how it impacts families, communities, and even society as a whole. It's a reminder that these events have far-reaching consequences, leaving indelible marks on our collective psyche and shaping our understanding of safety, security, and the world around us.
It raises those crucial questions about how we as a society respond to these tragedies. How do we support survivors in the long term? How do we prevent future violence? How do we create a culture of safety and respect that values mental health and provides resources for those who are struggling?
These are complex issues with no easy answers, but it starts with acknowledging the problem, engaging in open and honest dialogue, and working towards solutions that address the root causes of violence and promote healing. Listening to these stories, these first-hand accounts of human suffering and resilience, is an important step in that process.
Absolutely. The next story takes us back to a high school setting, but this time it's told from the perspective of a teacher, which offers a unique and often overlooked viewpoint.
Yeah.
She describes the fear and confusion of a lockdown, that sense of responsibility for her students' well-being, a feeling of protectiveness that takes over.
It sheds light on the immense pressure teachers face in these situations. They're not just educators, they're also guardians responsible for the safety and well-being of their students.
Yeah.
It's a role that comes with a heavy burden, especially in a world where school shootings have become a terrifying reality.
The teacher describes hiding with her students in a darkened classroom, listening to the sounds of police sirens and helicopters outside the story. Captures the fear in the students' eyes, the whispered prayers, the desperate texts to loved ones. It's a poignant reminder of the human toll of these events, how they shatter our sense of security and leave us feeling vulnerable and afraid.
It also highlights the importance of providing teachers with the training and resources they need to respond effectively in these situations.
Yes.
They need to feel confident in their ability to protect their students and themselves, to navigate the chaos and uncertainty of a lockdown with clear protocols and a sense of preparedness.
And it's not just about physical safety, but also emotional support. Teachers need to be equipped to handle their own trauma and help their students process theirs.
Right.
They need access to resources, counseling, and ongoing support to cope with the aftermath of these events and continue to foster a safe and nurturing learning environment.
Absolutely. We often forget that teachers are on the front lines of these situations.
Yeah.
And their well-being is crucial to the well-being of the entire school community.
The story ends with the lockdown being lifted, but the teacher is left with a profound sense of unease.
Right.
She knows that things will never be quite the same.
Yeah.
The experience has changed her students, changed the way she views her role as an educator and the world around her.
It's a sobering reminder that these events have lasting repercussions.
They do.
They force us to confront our own mortality, our own vulnerability, and the fragility of the world we live in.
Yeah.
But they also challenge us to find ways to heal, to rebuild, to create a sense of security and resilience in the face of adversity.
It's heavy stuff, but it's important to acknowledge and discuss these issues openly.
Yeah.
We need to learn from these experiences and work together to create a safer future for our schools and communities.
And it's important to remember that even though these stories can be incredibly difficult to hear, they also offer these glimmers of hope. You know, we see acts of courage, we see compassion from strangers, we see the dedication of educators and first responders. Yeah.
All working tirelessly to protect and support those affected by these tragedies.
It's true. Amidst the darkness, there's always light to be found. Our final story today offers a different perspective, focusing on the experience of a parent whose child is caught in a school shooting.
All right.
And what's particularly interesting here is how technology, specifically social media, shapes her experience.
So this parent is miles away from the school, yet she's getting real-time updates through her child's posts and messages.
Wow.
It's a whole new level of helplessness, almost like being trapped in a virtual nightmare.
Yeah.
You can imagine the agonizing wait for news, the frantic attempts to contact her child, the constant refreshing of social media feeds, hoping for any sign that they're safe.
It's almost a secondary trauma, experiencing these events from afar through the filter of social media.
Yeah.
You're bombarded with images and videos, firsthand accounts of fear and panic, and that sense of immediacy can be so overwhelming. Absolutely. It raises questions about the psychological impact of witnessing these events through this digital lens. But at the same time, the story also highlights the power of social media to connect and support people during times of crisis.
Yeah.
We see this outpouring of love and concern, the shared prayers and messages of hope.
It creates a sense of virtual community, a shared experience of grief and support that transcends geographical boundaries.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? We've heard stories of terror resilience, the long-lasting effects of trauma, and the ways technology shapes our experience of these events. These first-hand accounts from Black Veil aren't easy to listen to, but they're incredibly important.
They are.
They remind us that school lockdowns and the threat of violence are a stark reality for many.
They force us to confront uncomfortable truths about the world we live in, but they also offer glimpses of hope, reminding us of the human capacity for courage, compassion, and resilience. And they highlight the importance of having open and honest conversations about these issues, working together to create a safer future for everyone.
This deep dive has been heavy. No doubt we've explored the raw emotions, the fear, the uncertainty, and the long-lasting impact of these events.
Yeah.
But we've also seen the strength of the human spirit, the ways communities come together to support each other, and the efforts being made to prevent future tragedies.
As we wrap up this deep dive, we encourage you to reflect on what resonated with you most. What questions are still swirling in your mind? What insights have you gained?
Maybe you're thinking about the security measures in your own community, the importance of mental health resources, or the role technology plays in shaping our understanding of these events. These are all valid and important questions to consider.
Remember, knowledge is power. By understanding the complexities of these issues, we can begin to create positive change. We'd advocate for better policies, support organizations working to prevent violence, and foster a culture of empathy and understanding within our own communities.
This deep dive may be over, but the conversation doesn't end here. Keep asking those tough questions, keep seeking out information, and keep working towards a safer and more peaceful world.